Welcome to episode 4 of Signals, a Starbold Studios production. Today's episode is called State of Emotions, a phrase pulled from the intro song, But Anyway, by Blues Traveler. I'm intentionally publishing it on Martin Luther King Day. I've had some personal matters unfolding lately, so professionally I've been focused almost exclusively on client work and my role with the Advisor Collective. That explains the brief hiatus. As I regroup and launch into 2026, I felt the need to articulate some of the signals I've been picking up. As usual, I'll follow my 4-point structure. So here are the 4 concepts I'd like to get across. First, now more than ever, I sense a strong effort to preserve a clean separation between politics and business. On the surface, the work that I focus on, squarely within the human resources function, might seem like a logical place to enforce that boundary. However, at this moment in time, assuming current events have no impact on employees is a fundamental misread of reality. Employees are influenced by what's happening around them in both obvious and subtle ways. Ignoring that influence means failing to understand the employee experience and, by extension, the organization itself. Second, it's critical to think deliberately about how employees might be impacted if we expect to respond effectively. If organizations took the time to group their workforce into categories that reflect their current circumstances and then examine the implications of each, they'd quickly recognize that their business is already being disrupted. I'll outline a few of those buckets, from most to least severe. With the immigration crackdown, some individuals are literally not going to work right now out of fear for their personal safety, even when their documentation is in order. Certain workplaces, such as fast food restaurants, are locking their doors and operating in drive-through only mode. Entire schools are being closed in response to unfolding situations, and obviously there are geographical dimensions to all of this. Many examples above came from Minneapolis-St. Paul, but similar scenarios are playing out in other cities. And finally, there are employees who are indirectly impacted, which leads to my next point. My third point is about trauma and its impact on employees. There's the familiar kind, events in someone's personal life that inevitably spill into work, absences, reduced productivity, and declines in overall mental health. Beyond standard life trauma, the death of a loved one, illness, divorce, there's the trauma of current events themselves. This is not political commentary. There have been publicly viewable deaths connected to different points of the political spectrum. Recently, I read a quote from someone who said that listening to the final words of the individuals involved permanently changed my wiring. Put simply, someone's employee is no longer the same person after absorbing that information. And if you're paying attention to social media, the volume of hostility is staggering. There's an enormous amount of fighting, dehumanization, and explicitly racist behavior happening in plain sight. Some of your employees are witnessing this. Some are participating, and some are the direct targets of it. That matters. This isn't only about reputational risk when personal views bleed into professional identities. It's about the sustained emotional and psychological toll on people who are expected to show up and perform while navigating an environment that feels increasingly hostile or unsafe. My fourth point is about responsibility and who should be addressing all of this. What I learned in the past year is that the function I've spent 18 years supporting may or may not rise to moments like this. It often depends on the leaders of the organization. And to be fair, this isn't about assigning blame. These are complex issues, and when politics enters the conversation, we're reminded daily that employment does not exist on the same footing as the First Amendment. So where does the responsibility land? Is it state and local governments, school systems, or in the professional world? Does this extend beyond the people management function and require visible, intentional leadership at the corporate level? This episode was an exercise in dipping my toes in the water. I don't pretend to have the solution, but I do believe that there's a deeply rooted problem that far too few are willing to name. I did suggest one practical starting point: deliberately cataloging employee impacts. I want to hear from you. I want to explore this topic further, and I intend to be part of the solution. As the Martin Luther King quote goes, there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular, but he must take it because his conscience tells him it's right. Stay tuned for our next episode.